In many suburban communities across the United States, homeowners associations, HOAs, play a significant role in maintaining property values and fostering a sense of order. An HOA is a governing body made up of residents who enforce rules, regulations, and guidelines for the neighborhood. Their primary purpose is to ensure that the community remains aesthetically pleasing and that residents adhere to certain standards of behavior. This can include everything from landscaping requirements to noise restrictions. While HOAs may have noble intentions, their approach can sometimes lead to tension between residents and the governing body. The regulations set forth by an HOA are often met with mixed reactions. Some homeowners appreciate the structure it provides, while others see it as an overreach into their personal lives. This duality creates an intricate relationship where trust is essential, yet frequently tested. The dynamics of this relationship become especially pronounced when a conflict arises. The HOA often operates on a set of bylaws that can seem abstract or overly stringent to those living under its rules. Residents may find themselves at odds with the association when it comes to decisions that affect their daily lives or cherished possessions. In our story, this conflict escalates dramatically when the HOA takes action against one resident's beloved dog. In our community, like many others, the HOA was formed to protect property values and ensure a collective standard of living. However, this intent can sometimes morph into a heavy-handed enforcement of rules that do not necessarily take into account individual circumstances or emotional attachments. For instance, a homeowner might face penalties for minor infractions or even have their pets targeted for supposed violations of pet policies. This was precisely what happened in our protagonist's case. With strict regulations governing pet ownership, size limits, noise complaints, and even aesthetics, the HOA decided to intervene when they received complaints about the protagonist's dog. Rather than addressing these issues compassionately, the HOA opted for drastic measures that threatened not just the bond between owner and pet, but also the very spirit of community connection. The impact was immediate and profound. Residents began to question not only their own relationships with their pets, but also with their neighbors and the association itself. The lines between authority and autonomy blurred as the situation escalated. Many felt sympathy for the protagonist and their plight but remained wary of openly opposing the HOA. In this atmosphere of uncertainty, it became clear that while HOAs are designed to uphold community standards, they can also inadvertently sow discord among residents. This tension would set the stage for a rallying cry, a turning point where neighbors would band together in solidarity against what they perceived as an unjust treatment of one of their own. The atmosphere shifted from passive acceptance to active resistance as they considered how best to confront this looming challenge while navigating their complex relationship with the HOA. In the heart of this suburban neighborhood lived a gentle soul named Alex, who found solace and companionship in their spirited golden retriever, Max. From the moment Alex brought Max home as a puppy, the bond between them was undeniable. Max wasn't just a dog, he was family, a constant source of joy during tough times, a playful friend on sunny days, and a dutiful protector when darkness fell. Their connection was forged through countless adventures, from early morning runs to relaxed afternoons spent lounging in the backyard. Every Saturday, Alex and Max shared a ritual. They would embark on long hikes through nearby trails, where Max would bound ahead exuberantly, investigating every rustle in the bushes, his tail wagging like a flag. These excursions were more than just exercise. They were moments of pure happiness that deepened their friendship. Alex often reflected on how much brighter life felt with Max by their side, turning mundane chores into exciting escapades. The simple acts of feeding him in the mornings or setting aside time to play fetch became cherished traditions that strengthened their bond. When Alex faced frustrating days at work or felt overwhelmed by life's challenges, it was always Max who sensed the change in mood first. With an intuitive understanding, he would nuzzle against Alex's leg or rest his head on their lap, offering comfort without demand. As if sharing a secret language, Alex would often talk to Max about dreams and worries. In return, Max provided unwavering loyalty and affection. For instance, during thunderstorms that rattled not only windows but also Alex's nerves, Max would curl protectively beside them, offering warmth and reassurance amid fear. Thus, they became each other's safe harbor, a bond that went beyond typical pet ownership. However, this tranquil life took an unexpected turn when the HOA targeted them due to complaints about Max's barking during particularly boisterous play sessions with neighborhood kids. It felt ludicrous to think that something so integral to their happiness could become grounds for such drastic action. The news sent shockwaves through Alex. Losing Max was inconceivable. This turmoil sparked conversations among neighbors who had observed the devotion between Alex and Max over the years. They admired how deeply intertwined their lives were, how gatherings were often punctuated by playful barks and wagging tails. They couldn't fathom an HOA targeting a family member like this. It wasn't long before whispers turned into plans. They understood the significance of standing together for their shared community spirit. The residents began recalling stories and images of joyful moments. Barbecues graced with Max running freely around children's feet or evenings filled with laughter as everyone gathered while he penned animated tales about his doggy endeavors. And so began a campaign, not merely for one dog but for every pet represented in their lives, showing that love should never be quantified by rigid rules. The community's determination ignited newfound strength among its members as they rallied around Alex. This solidarity hinted at changes waiting just beneath the surface, an uprising against the HOA that would soon take shape as they refused to accept what felt like an affront to their new way of life. The peaceful atmosphere in the neighborhood shattered like glass when the HOA received multiple complaints about Max's barking. What started as a seemingly innocuous issue escalated when a few residents, frustrated by the sounds of laughter and playful barks during afternoon play sessions, decided to voice their grievances. They described Max's enthusiastic barks as disruptive, claiming it interfered with their peace and quiet. To them, the joyful sounds of childhood play and canine companionship became an annoyance rather than a testament to community spirit. Word quickly spread that the HOA intended to take action against Alex and Max. A formal notice arrived in Alex's mailbox, an official communication stating that due to repeated violations of the pet policy concerning noise disturbances, Max was to be evicted from the premises. The letter felt like a dagger to Alex's heart. It was not just about losing a pet, but also about losing a fundamental part of their life and happiness. The implications were devastating. Max was more than just a dog. He was a companion who had been there through thick and thin. As Alex read through the lines of bureaucratic language, anger mingled with disbelief. How could they consider removing a beloved family member based on complaints that stemmed from his natural exuberance? It felt absurd to think that a dog's joy could lead to such drastic measures. With every word absorbed, Alex's mind raced back to memories shared with Max. Playful barks echoing in the yard during sunny days, snuggles on cold evenings, and all those moments that defined their bond. The emotional toll weighed heavily on Alex. It wasn't simply about rules or regulations. It was about love and companionship being marginalized by what felt like an impenetrable wall of authority. How could neighbors allow this? Hadn't they seen how well-behaved Max was during walks or gatherings? Each time he met someone new, he would wag his tail enthusiastically, inviting affection rather than disruption. As despair deepened, Alex began reaching out to friends within the community for support. Conversations turned into hushed discussions about how unfairly they perceived the situation. Many neighbors shared similar sentiments. They recalled their own experiences of joyous interactions with Max, illustrating how his presence contributed positively to neighborhood life. However, as the HOA prepared for potential enforcement actions, dread loomed large over Alex's head. The possibility of losing Max brought forth an immense sense of helplessness. They envisioned the worst-case scenario: separation from their loyal companion, seeing him taken away not just from their home but from their heart. It became clear that this wasn't merely a battle for one dog. It represented something larger, a fight for community values against imposition by an authority that seemed detached from the very essence of what made their neighborhood special. With every passing day leading up to the HOA's decision, tension brewed within both Alex and supportive neighbors willing to stand up against these unjust policies that threatened not only Max's place, but also the spirit of unity they cherished among themselves. Determined to fight for Max's place in their home, Alex took the first step by reaching out to the HOA to express their concerns. The initial communication was a heartfelt email, outlining not only the deep emotional connection they shared with Max, but also highlighting his good behavior in the community. Alex detailed how Max typically interacted well with neighbors, often bringing smiles and joy rather than disruption. Unfortunately, the response from the HOA was anything but understanding. The HOA's reply came quickly, a sterile and impersonal acknowledgement of Alex's email that failed to address any of the emotional aspects or personal stories shared. Instead, it reiterated the same tired policies about noise disturbances. This response only fueled Alex's frustration. It felt as though their heartfelt plea fell on deaf ears, buried under layers of bureaucratic indifference. Undeterred, Alex decided that a face-to-face meeting might foster a more productive dialogue. Arranging a time to meet with the HOA board members proved challenging. Their schedules were tightly packed, and meetings often included multiple agenda items unrelated to individual homeowner issues. Eventually, Alex secured a slot during one of the monthly meetings, a fleeting opportunity to present Max's case directly. As they prepared for this meeting, Alex rehearsed what they wanted to convey. Not just facts, but the genuine love and companionship Max brought into their life. On the day of the meeting, nerves churned within Alex as they approached the conference table filled with HOA board members. The atmosphere felt somewhat cold and detached. Each member was busy shuffling papers or whispering among themselves as if they were unaware of why this particular meeting mattered so much to one resident. When given the chance to speak, Alex laid out their heart's truth, sharing anecdotes about Max's integral role during difficult moments in life and explaining how his presence had enriched their home and community. However, despite baring their soul, compassion remained absent from the board's response. They listened courteously but returned firmly to policy enforcement, a reiteration that complaints were taken seriously and outlined consequences without any consideration for context or individual relationships. Their rigid adherence to rules struck Alex as unjust. They had hoped for a glimmer of understanding, but instead faced an overwhelming wall of protocol that seemed impervious to empathy. Afterward, feeling utterly deflated yet resolute, Alex sought feedback from friends in the neighborhood who had witnessed the meeting. Most shared sentiments echoing theirs: frustration at how disconnected the HOA had become regarding actual community dynamics. Some voiced appreciation for Alex's courage in standing up for Max, while others quietly lamented how arbitrary such rules could be when they overshadowed simple joys like playing fetch or sharing laughter among kids and pets. Following this disappointing encounter with little hope left for resolution through conventional channels, Alex understood that deeper changes were needed not just for Max but also for every resident navigating similar issues with an unyielding association. Recognizing this plight as a collective struggle galvanized them further. It encouraged conversations among neighbors who felt equally frustrated by an organization that seemed to prioritize regulations over community well-being. A pivotal moment leading them toward taking united action against these oppressive policies. The anticipated day finally arrived for the HOA, which had made a shocking decision. Max would be auctioned off to the highest bidder. When the announcement came, delivered via a letter for all residents to see, an uproar rippled through the community. The notice specified that due to ongoing violations regarding noise complaints, and after failed attempts at resolution, the board decided to treat Max not as a beloved pet but as a commodity to be sold. This news struck Alex like a thunderbolt, leaving them reeling in disbelief at how swiftly their world had turned upside down. For Alex, the auction meant facing the unimaginable prospect of losing Max forever, the heart-wrenching reality of potentially watching someone else take away their best friend. Their emotions churned in a whirlwind of despair and betrayal. How could the HOA treat such a cherished member of their family this way? Each line of the letter felt like a knife through their heart, and visions of Max being taken away filled them with dread. As word of the auction spread throughout the neighborhood, reactions varied from shock to outrage. Neighbors who had initially stayed quiet began voicing their opinions more fervently. Many had observed Max at play, wagging his tail around children at barbecues, joining in games of fetch, and bringing companionship that made daily life better. The thought of him being sold like an object contrasted sharply with the vibrant spirit he infused into their shared community. In quiet gatherings on front porches, discussions grew animated as residents expressed disbelief over the HOA's decision. Friends of Alex recounted fond memories of Max, how he had comforted those grieving or brought joy during tough times. They lamented how it was absurd for an organization meant to foster community spirit to act so callously against a beloved pet. As sentiments rallied against the HOA's authoritarian measures, it became clear that outrage was brewing below the surface. Several neighbors stepped forward to pledge their support for Alex in whatever way they could, signaling a growing movement. Whispers of creating a plan formed, a coalition of sorts that would work together not only to reclaim Max but challenge what many perceived as an unjust application of power by the HOA. This united effort ignited feelings of solidarity. There were avenues to explore, strategies to devise, and warmth in numbers that made everyone feel hopeful. On the auction day itself, an undercurrent of tension hung thick in the air. Many residents gathered at the scene. Some could not bear to see it unfold while others felt obliged to attend, wanting to show their support for Alex in any capacity they could muster. The atmosphere was thick with anxious anticipation as attendees awaited what felt like an impending tragedy. With every new face showing up to bid for Max, Alex wrestled with conflicting emotions. Part hope that someone would support their cause, and part dread over losing their companion altogether. The sense that this was both an auction and a trial, a test of community values set against rigid conformity, had turned what should have been a simple exchange into something transformative. As people began rallying together, hope flickered in Alex's heart. Perhaps, united by love for Max and commitment to fairness, they could turn the tide against an unjust situation that threatened all they held dear. As the date of the auction loomed closer, an unspoken understanding began to weave through the neighborhood, creating a network of silent support for Alex and Max. Many residents had witnessed the injustice unfolding and felt compelled to help while navigating the tricky terrain of HOA regulations. They agreed to remain quiet about their awareness of the auction, recognizing that their collective silence could serve as a shield against the HOA's rigid enforcement and oppressive rules. In hushed conversations held under shady porches or during casual encounters at the local park, neighbors expressed their solidarity with Alex. They shared stories of how Max had brightened their days, whether he was fetching sticks for children, sitting patiently by their sides during community events, or simply being a source of laughter and joy in an otherwise mundane day. Each anecdote reinforced the idea that Max was not just a nuisance but a beloved member of their shared community. This silent support transformed into a powerful movement beneath the surface. As residents began to strategize on how they could assist Alex without drawing attention from the HOA, while some worried about potential repercussions for speaking out, others felt emboldened by a sense of camaraderie. They understood that they were not just standing up for one dog. They were standing up for community values that prioritize compassion over cold enforcement. One evening, a small group gathered at a neighbor's house to discuss their options. Over cups of coffee and plates of cookies, they brainstormed ways to ensure Max would return home safely. Ideas ranged from quietly attending the auction to bid on Max collectively, to organizing an informal protest against the HOA's policies, demonstrating that they would not tolerate such punitive measures directed at cherished pets. As plans took shape, residents agreed not to reveal their intentions publicly, hoping that discretion would allow them to operate under the HOA's radar. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. A combination of anxiety and determination filled the air. Each neighbor recognized that their individual efforts were part of a greater cause. Everyone's role was crucial in ensuring success. On auction day, many residents arrived early, casual smiles masking the tension beneath. A few wore t-shirts emblazoned with slogans like "Pets are family" and "Community over compliance," subtly expressing their defiance while blending in with the crowd. The solidarity among neighbors swelled in those moments, moving beyond mere words into a collective mindset ready to face the HOA with unwavering unity. As Alex prepared for what felt like a battle for Max's soul, they sensed this silent army behind them, people who had chosen to stand up against injustice in any way they could. Their presence inspired hope. It reminded Alex that they were not alone in this fight. When the auction began and bidding commenced, Alex's heart raced not just with anxiety, but with gratitude for the community backing them up. The silent support of neighbors transformed into a resounding voice, a powerful assertion that love for pets and community connection could triumph over bureaucracy. With each bid placed discreetly among familiar faces, it became clear that actions taken in unity could counteract even the most formidable bureaucratic forces. Together, they stood firm against the HOA's oppressive measures, ready to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Max's place within their family and community. The atmosphere on auction day was electric with tension, set against a backdrop of uncertainty that hung heavy in the air. As residents gathered at the HOA Community Center, whispers filled the room, punctuated by anxious laughter meant to mask the underlying worry. Flashes of bright-colored t-shirts emblazoned with slogans like "Max Matters" and "Stand for Pets" scattered throughout the crowd. But the true intentions behind the smiles were far more serious. Neighbors exchanged quick glances, their expressions reflecting a shared understanding of the mission at hand: to reclaim Max and send a message to the HOA. For Alex, standing at the edge of the auction space felt like teetering on the brink of an emotional abyss. Their heart raced with each tick of the clock, overwhelmed by a mixture of hope and dread. What if the bids went beyond their means? What if they lost their beloved dog forever? It was more than just a financial bid. It was a race against time for Max's life as a cherished family member. The thought of seeing Max taken away by a stranger sent waves of anxiety crashing through Alex. Meanwhile, neighbors moved discreetly among themselves, readying their plan without drawing attention from the HOA representatives overseeing the auction. A few had pooled their resources, agreeing on a set amount they would each contribute if it came down to placing bids. Their camaraderie, forged through shared memories and love for Max, lent them courage as they maintained composure amid the mounting tension. Each time auctioneer's voice rang out, calling for bids, Alex's heart leaped in response. The thick gathering of community members shifted as they peered toward the front, where Max sat, confused yet blissfully unaware of the turmoil surrounding him. His big brown eyes sparkled with innocence amid such chaos, capturing the essence of everything they were fighting for. It was this image that solidified Alex's resolve. They needed to get Max back at any cost. As bidding commenced, neighbors subtly rallied together. Some stood near the front row, allowing Alex to gauge reactions from others in the room while placing random small bids to create confusion. Others whispered encouragement and reminders to stay calm during each call for higher offers. The solidarity among them transformed the overwhelming pressure into a force of collective determination. A murmur spread through the crowd when it became clear that there were only a few other bidders interested in Max. Some had come merely out of obligation, while others were curious onlookers and lacked enthusiasm for what felt like an assault on community values. The more Alex observed this dynamic unfold, the more strengthened their resolve became. This was not just about Max anymore. It was about standing up against an unjust system that prioritized policy over compassion. With every bid called out, neighbors exchanged knowing nods to one another and brief smiles of encouragement. As Alex prepared to make the final bid, they could feel their neighbor's energy charging them like a wave. When they raised their hand defiantly and called out a modest offer, a chorus of cheers erupted from those who had banded together in silent support. This auction was more than just an event. It was a testament to what could be accomplished when a community united under one purpose. As tension mingled with hope, Alex felt fortified by this community spirit surrounding them, ready to face whatever outcome awaited at the end of this tumultuous day. They might have been just one person fighting for their dog, but they weren't alone. The unyielding solidarity of their neighbors would echo through this battle for Max's rightful place in their lives. As the auction neared its conclusion, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and a palpable sense of hope. Alex stood at the front, heart racing, scanning the room filled with familiar faces, friends and neighbors who had rallied together to support them. The bidding had been modest thus far, but the stakes felt monumental. When it became clear that other bidders had lost interest, Alex felt a surge of determination rise within them. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the hall as he called for one final bid for Max, going once, going twice. Each moment stretched like an eternity. Alex could feel every heartbeat thundering in their chest, resonating with a mix of fear and hope. Would they be able to reclaim their beloved dog? Could they really bring Max home? In that instant, Alex raised their hand high, calling out with unwavering conviction, $10. The words felt both surreal and empowering. $10 seemed like such a small price to pay for everything Max represented. Loyalty, companionship, and love. The room erupted into a mix of surprised gasps and murmurs. It was more than just an offer. It was a declaration that they would not let bureaucratic rules dictate their bond. As the auctioneer paused and looked around the room for further bids, silence fell heavy in the air. Alex's neighbors exchanged glances filled with encouragement. They could sense victory was within reach. The auctioneer nodded slowly, his gavel hovering above the podium as he scanned the crowd one last time. "Sold," he announced decisively. A wave of relief washed over Alex like a cleansing tide. Tears blurred their vision as joy erupted within them. They had done it. They successfully bought back Max. The realization hit harder than any emotional wave. Not only had they reclaimed their dog, but they had also forged an unbreakable bond with their community that stood up against injustice. Cheers erupted from friends and neighbors who quickly surrounded Alex in celebration. Overwhelmed by gratitude and emotion, Alex knelt down as Max rushed into their arms, tail wagging furiously in delight. The golden retriever nuzzled affectionately against Alex's cheek, blissfully unaware of the drama he had been at the center of just moments before. Laughter mingled with tears as neighbors joined in on the joyful reunion. Some reached out to pet Max while others shared happy exclamations about how this moment symbolized something larger than just one dog returning home. It marked a powerful stand against an HOA that had forgotten about community spirit, a reminder that love and connection triumph over rigid regulations. Amidst all this jubilation, however, a thought lingered at the back of Alex's mind. This victory wasn't merely personal. It was a testament to what could be achieved when people came together for a common cause. With Max safely back in their arms and surrounded by supportive friends who believed in standing up for what was right, Alex felt hope blossom anew. It became clear this experience would reshape not just the relationship between them and Max, but also redefine how community members viewed their roles within this neighborhood moving forward. Together, they would continue to challenge unfair practices while ensuring that no family member, human or pet, would ever face such adversity again without support from those who cared deeply about them. The triumphant reclaiming of Max ignited a fire within the community, transforming a moment of joy into a catalyst for change. The residents, inspired by the victory and fueled by a newfound sense of unity, began to gather in small groups to discuss how they could take collective action against the HOA's overreach. Conversations blossomed into fervent discussions around porch tables and in backyards, where once muted voices now echoed with determination. One evening, a larger meeting was organized at the community center, drawing an unexpected number of residents eager to share grievances about the HOA's draconian policies. The atmosphere buzzed with energy as neighbors recounted their own experiences. Stories of petty fines for minor infractions, harassment over lawn aesthetics, and restrictions that dictated how they could enjoy their homes. It became clear that Alex's struggle was part of a larger tapestry of discontent woven throughout the neighborhood. "Why should we live in fear of our own choices?" one resident exclaimed, prompting nods of agreement from those gathered. Ideas began flowing freely. Some suggested drafting a unified letter to the HOA to express concerns collectively, while others proposed initiating a petition demanding more transparent governance and clearer lines of communication. The spirit of teamwork thrived as plans took shape. Amidst this brainstorming, someone proposed organizing a community meeting that included not only residents but also representatives from the HOA. This idea generated excitement, envisioning an opportunity to confront board members directly and address grievances face-to-face. "Let's show them we're not just individual homeowners but a united front," another neighbor added passionately. As plans solidified, residents offered to take on different roles, some volunteering to prepare materials for the meeting, while others stepped forward as representatives who would voice the community's concerns. A local resident who had previous experience in local government even offered to help draft a proposal outlining specific changes they wanted to see in HOA regulations. Beneath this energetic atmosphere lay a shared understanding. They were no longer willing to accept an organization that operated with disregard for their needs and connection as neighbors. Determination rippled through each conversation, a sentiment where every individual felt they belonged to something bigger than themselves, a movement aimed at reclaiming control over their neighborhood. That evening at the community center was pivotal. It was not merely about addressing the issues stemming from Max's auction, but about restoring dignity and respect among residents caught in an oppressive cycle of rules. Every new idea solidified their commitment to advocating for fair treatment not only for themselves but for all pet owners and families feeling marginalized by stringent regulations. As they prepared for their upcoming meeting with the HOA, what filled those present wasn't merely apprehension but revitalized hope. A belief that together they could redefine what it meant to belong in their neighborhood. Standing shoulder to shoulder, they envisioned a future where love for pets and commitment to community values triumphed over outdated bureaucratic measures designed to stifle joy and connection. That night marked the beginning of an awakening within the community, a profound realization that when united by shared values and purpose, they could challenge any force that threatened their happiness. Their voices would become stronger together. No longer would they sit silently while unwarranted rules dictated their lives. This newfound collective resolve guaranteed that Max's victory would be just the first step toward reclaiming their rights as proud members of a vibrant neighborhood community. With the taste of victory still fresh in their minds, the community felt a renewed sense of purpose and solidarity. After reclaiming Max, neighbors began to develop concrete strategies for confronting the HOA and demanding significant change. They understood that this was not just a fight for one dog but a fight for their rights as residents and for the values they believed their community should uphold. A few days after the auction, a planning meeting was convened in the park, where residents gathered beneath the shade of spreading oak trees. The atmosphere buzzed with determination as they threw around ideas on how to effectively present their concerns to the HOA. One resident suggested forming a coalition that would serve as a unified voice for all homeowners. This idea resonated deeply. By organizing themselves into a cohesive unit, they could demonstrate the extent of their discontent and demand attention for their grievances. Let's present this as a list of solutions, not just complaints, Alex suggested. If they see that we're willing to collaborate for positive changes, they might be more receptive. This strategic approach shifted the focus from mere dissatisfaction to constructive proposals aimed at improving community relations with the HOA. As discussions progressed, residents worked diligently to compile a list of specific demands. Clearer guidelines on pet ownership, a review of fines and penalties that felt arbitrary or excessive, and an appeal for more open communication between the HOA board and residents. Throughout these conversations, an outpouring of stories emerged. Tales of neighbors being penalized unfairly, properties being targeted over trivial issues, and the general atmosphere of fear that loomed over the community due to rigid enforcement. Volunteers took on various roles. One group gathered signatures for a petition, while another prepared materials for an upcoming presentation to the HOA board. Social media was utilized to spread awareness within and beyond their neighborhood. Flyers were circulated. Gatherings were organized to inform others about the collective movement. Each resident who joined added another layer of strength to the coalition. After weeks of organizing, it was time for confrontation. A large community meeting was set at the HOA's regular meeting space, with residents prepared to present their unified stance against unjust policies. The day arrived and the air was thick with anticipation as community members donned T-shirts emblazoned with slogans advocating for fairness and compassion in their neighborhood governance. During the meeting, when it came time for public comments, Alex stepped forward, supported by friends and neighbors standing resolutely behind them. As they spoke eloquently about the importance of pets in their lives and shared personal anecdotes about Max and other beloved animals in the community, palpable emotion flowed through the room. The group's representative then laid out their demands clearly and respectfully, urging board members to reassess policies that had created divisions instead of fostering unity. "We are not here to vilify. We want to work together," they emphasized, presenting constructive suggestions rather than simple complaints. Following this powerful presentation, other residents echoed similar sentiments, sharing anecdotes that reinforced their collective plight. The atmosphere shifted. Board members appeared taken aback by both the unity of response from residents and the emotional weight carried by their words. The meeting concluded with a promise from the HOA to review concerns raised and an invitation for further dialogue. A small victory, but nonetheless significant progress toward fostering a healthier relationship between residents and the HOA. As neighbors left that evening, Camaraderie filled the air. They were bound by a cause greater than themselves. Empowered by each other's support, it became abundantly clear. Together they were capable of enacting meaningful change. With Max happily leading Alex home, tails wagging alongside proud hearts, it felt as if they were not just reclaiming their rights but redefining what it meant to belong in their vibrant community. In the wake of the community's newfound unity and assertiveness, the HOA faced mounting pressure and scrutiny. The residents' bold stand against Max's auction and their organized efforts to confront the board made it clear that complacency would no longer be tolerated. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. Once viewed as an untouchable authority, the HOA was now under the microscope, forced to reckon with the collective voice of its residents. The first consequence came swiftly after the community meeting, where residents laid out their grievances and demands for change. Board members, who had previously dismissed complaints as mere inconveniences, were now compelled to acknowledge the depth of emotion and solidarity among homeowners. The palpable sense of urgency in the room could not be ignored. It signaled a turning point where residents no longer felt isolated in their struggles. In response to the community's assertion of rights, the HOA began to reassess its policies. They convened a special board meeting to discuss potential changes prompted by resident feedback. This marked the first time in years that they would openly consider revising rules that had long been enacted without input from those affected. The board initiated discussions on establishing clearer guidelines for pet ownership, including more reasonable noise regulations that recognized normal pet behavior rather than criminalizing it. However, the repercussions of community action extended beyond policy changes. They also catalyzed shifts in leadership dynamics within the HOA. Several board members who had long held power began to feel threatened by the momentum building among residents. The faces that had remained expressionless during previous meetings now reflected a mix of concern and cautious acknowledgement, recognizing that their grip on authority depended on their willingness to adapt to the changing sentiments of those they governed. Some residents began suggesting that it might be time for new faces on the board, individuals who truly represented the community's values and priorities, rather than enforcing outdated rules that stifled neighborly connections. Conversations turned into campaigns, with neighbors encouraging one another to consider running for positions on the HOA board during upcoming elections. It became clear that empowering new leadership could realign the HOA's mission with community interests. As potential candidates emerged, discussions about fostering a more inclusive and communicative environment began taking root. Residents envisioned forums where concerns could be aired regularly, allowing for open dialogue between homeowners and board members, an idea that would foster transparency and trust instead of fear and resentment. The ripple effect of this united front was powerful. Other neighborhoods took notice. News of the community's resolve spread beyond their borders, inspiring nearby associations grappling with similar issues to reconsider their own governance structures. This collective resistance set a precedent that echoed throughout neighboring regions, emphasizing that unity could bring about significant change. With each step taken toward reform, the HOA realized that they could no longer operate in isolation or with impunity. The residents' actions not only transformed their own neighborhood, but also created a blueprint for other communities facing similar challenges. The pushback against oppressive policies had ignited a movement, one that fostered hope and empowered individuals to reclaim their voices in a system that was designed to serve them. As Max lay contentedly at Alex's feet, surrounded by friends and neighbors who had fought for his return, it became evident. From adversity arose not just victory but a renewed commitment to community spirit and collaboration, ensuring that every voice mattered in shaping their shared future. As the dust settled from the tumultuous events surrounding Max's auction and the community's subsequent rallying cry for justice, a profound sense of resilience emerged among the residents. What began as a struggle to save one beloved dog had morphed into a powerful movement that reshaped their neighborhood's identity. The experience taught them invaluable lessons about the strength found in unity and the importance of standing up against unfair regulations. For Alex, this journey with Max transformed into a profound awakening. The fear and helplessness they had once felt were replaced by a sense of empowerment that reverberated through every interaction with their neighbors. They realized that they did not just reclaim Max. They also reclaimed their voice within the community. Alex understood that by speaking out and collaborating with others, they could challenge the status quo and influence change. The collective action inspired members of the community to broaden their perspectives on governance and accountability. Where there had once been apathy or resignation toward HOA policies, there was now a fervent commitment to ensuring respectful engagement between residents and board members. Neighbors who had previously felt intimidated began attending meetings, eagerly participating in discussions about community values and policies. In the aftermath of these events, efforts were made to foster ongoing dialogue between the HOA board and residents. Regular forums were established where homeowners could voice concerns, propose suggestions, and receive updates on policy discussions in real time. This newfound transparency helped bridge gaps that had long existed between authority figures and community members. Meanwhile, as friendships strengthened through shared victories and collective efforts, an invitation for inclusion extended beyond issues affecting pets to encompass other areas where residents felt unheard. Topics such as landscaping policies, maintenance responsibilities, and neighborhood activities suddenly became subjects of lively discussion during gatherings, each voice carrying weight as they shaped their shared environment. Max's presence served as a constant reminder of what was at stake, a symbol not only of companionship but also of communal spirit unbound by bureaucracy. His playful barks became a joyous sound echoing through not just Alex's yard, but throughout homes where compassion thrived amidst cooperative engagement rather than rigid enforcement. As Halloween approached, plans for a block party emerged, a celebration to mark their victories as well as reinforce community ties. Residents organized games for kids, potluck dinners that showcased diverse cuisines, and even a special treat station for furry friends. The event would symbolize not only resilience but also new beginnings grounded in relationships built on mutual respect. On the day of the block party, laughter filled the air, children chased after one another with Max bounding joyfully among them. Neighbors chatted animatedly about gardening tips, upcoming events, or even shared anecdotes of times they'd felt unheard by authority figures, each story strengthening bonds within this vibrant tapestry woven from shared experiences. As Alex looked around at all the smiling faces enjoying themselves alongside Max, a dog once threatened by eviction, they felt immense gratitude swell within them. What had started as a battle against injustice blossomed into collaborative spirit binding neighbors who were committed to nurturing their community together. It became clear, through resilience and unity against adversity arose genuine connections that would endure far beyond mere regulations. They didn't just reclaim Max, they reclaimed their power as active participants in shaping their neighborhood's future, a testament that when communities come together for what matters most, hope flourishes along with joy in every wagging tail.